Yes, hello, darlings. I have come to educate you about the population spike during the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a time in which steam and coal could go and start moving things so that way you peasants would not have to. These factories started appearing everywhere, like clover in an open field, but factories weren't the only thing that spiked in. But factories were not the only thing that happened to had a increase. But factories and clovers were not the only things to see an increase in numbers, for mankind itself has also seen a massive population spike come out of the Industrial Revolution. There were three primary reasons why the population spike happened because of the Industrial Revolution. There were three primary reasons why the population spike happened during the Industrial Revolution. The first one being to changes in farming, along with changes in marriage, and finally changes in medicine. All three of these contributed to the massive increase in population from 1750 to 1850. Let's start with something that everybody needs: food. You peasants seem to farm it from wheat to barley. Alright? Let's start with something that everybody needs: food. You peasants farm it, so you must be very familiar. But you might not know that there was a significant change in farming right before the Industrial Revolution. An avid farmer has created this new idea called crop rotations. It is where you go and cycle the crops you do each year, going from wheat to clover to barley to turnips, and then you repeat it back over. For that would go in making the crops better for the next year. This allowed for us to use more and more and more of our land, which allowed for more food. This also allowed us to go and produce food for animals along with humans, for we can produce both turnips and clover. And with both turnips and clover being produced now, we will have lots of food. And with more food, we can go and feed more peasants like you, and you will bear more children. Speaking of children, let's talk about families. The family structure was largely the same during the Industrial Revolution. It did change in some significant ways, however. What stayed the same was the importance of the family and keeping the family tree alive. However, there was a much greater focus on the children of the family. The children of the family were grown up and raised. The children of the family were grown up to be raised and educated people compared to how they were before. This would lead to children to become more successful, and with more success comes more food and more money. Not only that, we also struck down on child labor. For child labor was an extreme problem when they would be working in the coal mines and on the fields. They would be paid less than men because they're only children, but they would be doing the more dangerous jobs because they're small and they can get into small places. With this abolishment of child labor and making it much more restrictive, this allowed children to grow up nice, strong, and healthy. And with the children growing up healthy, there are more people alive, which increases the population spike. For the final notice for the population spike, I believe it is the doctors and the medicine that has changed. There was quite heavy research done before the Industrial Revolution that would go and change the course of medicine. We started to use a more homeopathic form of treatment with these little sweet pills. I do not really know how these little sweet pills could go and cure my cough, but it seemed much better than using bloodletting. Bloodletting was a system in which where these plague doctors will go and let blood out from your wrists to go and let out the bad blood. This did not seem to help, and I was never in favor. But with the abolishment of bloodletting and using these new treatments, there seemed to be a massive increase in the amount of people who survived doctor visits. Speaking of the plague doctors, they do not seem to be around anymore. Those pesky guys and always running around warning us of disease. They have seemed to change for the better as they are no longer allowed, for there are no plagues. We have not seen a mass epidemic. While people still do get sick from the lack of sanitation in the big cities, we do not see huge epidemics such as the Black Plague or smallpox like we do in the colonies. This is why I truly believe that there is a massive population spike during the Industrial Revolution. Now I'm going to tell you peasants again, for you guys have probably forgotten it all by now, but the reason for the population spike was an increase of food, an increase to care for children, and an increase in the I'm going to tell all you peasants again, for you have probably forgotten, but the reason for the population spike during the Industrial Revolution was an increase in medicine, an increase now I'm going to go and tell you peasants again, because you probably all forgotten, but the primary reasons for this population spike during the Now I'm going to tell you peasants again, because you have probably all forgotten, but the primary reason that the Industrial Revolution Now I'm going to tell you peasants again, for you have Now I am going to tell you peasants again, for you have probably all forgotten, but the primary reasons for the Industrial Revolution's population spike was an increase in food, an increased focus in children, and an increase in the medicine, right? These are the three primary reasons for the population spike, as they seem to make people healthier and stronger, and make people be more educated, and that's what allow for people to have more children and to grow as a population. Now, if you excuse me, while you guys return to the farms, I shall go back to admiring my art and reading my book.